Welcome to this special test prep explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on what makes good writing, well, work. If you've got a text analysis exam coming up, this is for you. We're going to master a concept called lexical cohesion. Think of it as the invisible thread that ties a whole piece of writing together. Let's dive in.
So, have you ever thought about it? A text isn't just a random bunch of sentences thrown together, right? There's this secret glue that connects all the ideas and makes everything flow. Today, we're going to decode that glue. And by the end of this, I promise, you're going to be spotting these connections like a pro. It's a total game changer for any analysis exam.
Okay, first things first. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, we've got to clear up something that trips a lot of people up on tests: the difference between cohesion and coherence. Getting this right is like the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
So, what's the real difference? Well, think of it this way. Cohesion is the stuff you can actually see and point to on the page. It's the nuts and bolts, the specific words and grammar that link sentences. It's like the individual stitches in a quilt. Coherence, on the other hand, is the bigger picture. It's that overall feeling you get that the whole thing makes sense, that it hangs together. It's the beautiful pattern on the quilt that you only see because of all those little stitches. So bottom line, cohesion helps build coherence.
Now, there are a few different ways that texts create cohesion, but for this explainer and for your test prep, we're going to zero in on the big one: lexical cohesion. And that's really just a fancy way of saying it's all about how word choice, the lexicon, builds those bridges between ideas.
And you know what? To really nail lexical cohesion, you just need to get a handle on two main tools. Seriously, that's it. We're going to call them reiteration and collocation. Think of them as the two most important tools in your analysis toolkit. Let's break down the first one.
All right, first up in our toolkit, reiteration. It sounds a bit academic, I know, but the idea is super simple. It's just about repeating a word or an idea. But, and this is the key, it's often done in some pretty clever and varied ways. This is one of the most common cohesive links you're going to find.
So, the most straightforward version of this is what we call simple repetition. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You're just using the same word or phrase over again to keep an idea right there, front and center for the reader.
Take a look at this sentence. See how the word friend pops up twice? Now, you might think that's lazy writing, but it's not. It's actually a very deliberate choice to create cohesion. That repetition makes the link between the two parts of the sentence impossible to miss. The focus stays right on the friend.
Okay, so that's simple repetition. Let's level up a bit to something a little more sophisticated: synonymy. This is when a writer uses a synonym, a word with a similar meaning, to refer back to something they already mentioned. It's a great way to add some variety while keeping that connection strong.
Here's a classic example. See, the first sentence uses the word job, and the second one switches to work. Why? Well, it just sounds better, doesn't it? It avoids being too monotonous. But even with different words, the link is super clear. We know work refers back to job. That, my friends, is synonymy doing its job.
All right, next up, we have hyponymy. I know, another technical-sounding word, but trust me, you use this concept all the time without even thinking about it. It's basically the relationship between a general category and a specific type within that category. Like animal is the general term, and dog is the specific one. The specific word dog is the hyponymy. And this example just lays it all out perfectly. First, we talk about apples. That's our specific item. Then the next sentence uses the general word fruits to refer back to them. And boom, that's a cohesive link, created by going from the specific to the general. It's a super common and really effective technique.
Okay, last one under the reiteration tool, antonymy. And this one is really cool actually, because it builds a connection using opposites. Instead of creating a link through similarity, it uses contrast.
Check this out. The keywords here are rise and decline. They're total opposites, right? But they're both being used to talk about the exact same thing: population change. Using that contrast, that tension between the two words, actually creates a really strong cohesive bond that pulls the sentence together tightly.
All right, toolkit time again. Let's grab our second major tool, which is collocation. This one is all about words that just go together. We expect to find them in the same neighborhood. They're not synonyms, they're not opposites, they just hang out. And your brain is already a master at spotting these pairs.
So, one easy type of collocation to spot is what we call an ordered set. This is basically any group of words that belong to a series we've all learned, like the days of the week, numbers, or the months of the year. If you see a few of these in a text, they're automatically creating cohesion.
So in this sentence, we've got indigo, blue, and violet. What do they have in common? They're all colors. Just by putting them near each other, the writer creates a link based on something we all know, the set of colors.
Okay, next up is a really common one, activity-related collocation. This is all about words that are connected because they're part of the same activity or situation. You know, like doctor and hospital, or chef and kitchen, or read and book. The words themselves are different, but the context ties them together.
And here, the connection is pretty obvious, right? The verb fly and the noun plane. I mean, they're partners in crime in the world of flying. When we see them together, it just feels right, and that natural pairing creates a strong, cohesive link.
Okay, theory time is over. Let's get our hands dirty and actually put this stuff into practice, because this is exactly the kind of thing you'll be asked to do on an exam. We're going to look at a quick text and see what we can find.
All right, here we have a little piece from a classic short story by Hemingway. So just take a second here, read it over, and try to spot as many of those cohesive devices as you can. Think about reiteration and collocation. See what you find.
All right, how'd you do? Let's check it out. Right off the bat, you probably spotted the simple repetition, see and see, rain and rain. That repetition really hammers home the gloomy atmosphere, doesn't it? And then, what about artist and easel? That's a perfect example of activity-related collocation. We just expect those two things to go together. See how just a few of these simple tools can weave a text together so tightly? Once you know what to look for, you start seeing these patterns everywhere.
So, we've spent this time breaking down how great writers use these tools to create cohesion. But here's where it gets really interesting. Now that you can spot these patterns, the next question is, how are you going to use them? How can you take all this repetition, synonyms, collocation, and use it to make your own writing stronger, clearer, and more persuasive? Now that's the real test, isn't it?